Taxation is theft, and arming 87,000 IRS agents to go after the hardworking middle class, well, that's just flat-out armed robbery. Mr. Chair, I urge my colleagues to support my amendment, and I yield.
And I ask the gentlelady to yield for a question.
The gentleman's recognized. It's not my time.
I ask you to yield.
I have reserved. You're free to speak.
Yes, I'm asking if you'll yield for a question.
Sure. Ask your question.
What funds in this bill are used for the purposes you are opposed to?
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear the gentleman. I was getting clarification. This is precautionary.
Precautionary for what?
Even for someone who enjoys the demise of my least favorite Republicans, this was tough to watch. I mean, don't get me wrong, I watched it several times, but still tough.
Aliens.
And this reclaiming my time, Ms.
to ensure that it will not be.
Reclaiming my time. There are no funds in this bill.
In yet another example of her clear and obvious incompetence, Avid musical theatre attendee Lauren Boebert took to the House floor today to speak on the matter of 2024 Treasury and White House spending. It was, as you'd come to expect, a lot of hyperbole, sweeping generalizations with no context, and well, the thing is, if you weren't akin to her strategy and say had just learned about politics yesterday, you'd at least think, wow, she cares a lot, so maybe she does know a thing or two. Enter a veteran in the art of debate, Maryland Democrat Steny Hoyer, who, well, let's be honest, no amount of prefacing will do justice to what actually took place, so just enjoy.
What funds in this bill are used for the purposes you are opposed to?
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear the gentleman. I was getting clarification. This is precautionary.
Precautionary for what? I'm asking.
There are sanctuary city policies.
Yes, I understand. I understand what
that are in place that are allowing the refuge of illegal aliens in these cities, and there is an influx in crime and drugs.
I understand
in these cities, and there's no way for these folks to even report what is taking place because they are protected under this fake policy that has been created that is subduing the actual rule of law that we have in the Constitution of the United States.
Funds, right? I understand that. But what you've said is none of the funds in this bill can be spent for that objective.
And that is precautionary.
What funds are in this bill to be spent for that objective?
I have seen this administration use all sorts of funds
to
protect illegal aliens. And this
reclaiming my time, Ms.
to
Boebert.
ensure that it will not be.
Reclaiming my time. There are no funds in this bill to do that. So this is just an opportunity for you to stand and perhaps speak about an important subject. I understand that, but there are no funds in this bill to accomplish that objective. You don't believe the chairman would put funds in to accomplish that objective, do you? I yield.
A question?
Yeah.
I do not trust this administration with any of the taxpayer funding that they are handling. They are mishandling our taxpayer fund. And if the gentleman says that there's no funds and agrees that this is precautionary, then I would urge that you support this amendment.
Do you understand, if we do this amendment, any subject that anybody has an interest in would be subject to such an amendment? Now, the Rules Committee has waived points of order. Contrary to what they said they wanted done when we were in charge, because then they didn't want points of order so they could raise them. But there are no funds in this bill, Mr. Speaker, for the objective that the lady wants to prevent. And I guarantee you Chairman Womack would not have included any funds to protect such activity. I know him. I know he feels strongly about this. So this amendment has no place in this bill because there is no money in this bill. You can argue about sanctuary cities, you can argue about the border, you can do all of that, but this is not the bill to do it on. And this raises, therefore, a suspicion that somehow there's money in this bill that Mr. Womack would have put in or that I would have sanctioned to accomplish that objective. That is simply not true, Mr. Chairman. And This has no place in this bill.
Okay, let's take a moment, pick ourselves up from the floor after collapsing in shock that this woman could not grasp how things work on the House floor.
You know, we are addressed as MAGA extremists, extreme MAGA Republicans, and I would like to make just a clarification point. It's ultra MAGA.
But in all seriousness, it's just another demonstration of how woefully incompetent this woman really is.
You're right. President Trump was in office when the COVID virus was released from a lab in China, from the Wuhan lab. And he tried to make that very clear that this came from China. And reporters regularly dismissed that.
I appreciate the gentlelady's passion. There are two facts that she should perhaps be alerted to. One is that Donald Trump, on more than 20 different occasions, defended the performance of the Chinese government, and specifically President Xi, in terms of his treatment of COVID-19, and said he was doing a wonderful job and a great job, and they were working closely and they were constantly in touch. So if there's a problem with the Chinese government unleashing a virus which has not been proven anywhere, but it certainly could be true, you would have to pin that on your favorite president, Donald Trump, not on Joe Biden. The second thing is President Trump's own special advisor on COVID-19, Deborah Birx, I'm sure you're aware, and I'm sure you've read her book, said that the lethal recklessness of Donald Trump's policies about COVID-19 cost Americans hundreds of thousands of lives. So you don't have to believe anybody on the Democratic side of the aisle. That's Donald Trump's own special advisor on COVID-19. Thank you for yielding, and I happily yield back.
I need to remind viewers and voters, by the way, that she is up for re-election. And if cues from her fellow Republicans are anything to go by, several local Republican officials have announced their endorsement of Jeff Hurd, a more conventional Republican challenging her. Then she's in trouble.
But do you see that patients leave their prescriptions at pharmacies because they can no longer pay for it? I went to get birth control. And I was there at the counter and went to pay for it, and the price was very, very high. I said, wow, is this a 3-6 month prescription? No, ma'am, this is 1 month. And I said, it's cheaper to have a kid. And I left it there, and now I have my third son, Lauren Boebert.
Hurd's candidacy has become a vessel for Republican discontent with the perceived excesses of the party's MAGA wing, which you'd think more Republicans would grasp and rally behind, especially considering this week's election results.
As far as, you know, it does seem like the Republican Party generally has a real problem with winning.
Well, number one, incumbents that are popular are going to win. Number two, Republicans can't keep stumbling and bumbling on abortion. And number three, we can't keep losing close races.
I did something that nobody thought was possible. I got rid of Roe v. Wade.
Because the thing is, the MAGA shtick has lost whatever magic it somehow had in the first place. And what's left when you strip away the ad hominem, the incoherent rambling, the extreme diatribe, you get this.
Family home. It may not be a $2.5 million home like yours.
Personal
do you disagree?
My home.
Do you disagree that this was an overreach?
I disagree that
Ms.
you're
Katzen, my time
casting
has expired.
aspersions on
Mr. Chairman,
me
I yield.
or my...
Thank you.
An insult is not a substitute for an argument.
And then there's always somebody from this side that does something ridiculous that throws me all the way off because that was uncalled for. So let me do what she would never do, which is to be an adult in this room.
A woefully incompetent, abhorrent representative that is an embarrassment to the constituents that put her there in the first place. So Colorado, think twice about what is coming up in this next election.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.